Hello, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to do a dramatic storytelling episode. So sit tight, grab a snack, and enjoy the performance. I'm reading a story that I would like to be dramatic about, so that is what I'm going to do for some auditory entertainment. The reality we created after we met once in Miami, and everyone is shocked at the speed of manifesting alignment. The call that quietly changed everything. For Annie Lewis in the summer of 2026. There are moments in life that do not arrive with noise. No dramatic announcement, no public celebration, no evidence at first that the entire direction of a life has shifted. Sometimes the moment that changes everything arrives through something simple. One professional message, one thoughtful reply, one online call, one in-person meeting that makes the presence so strongly felt, with calm precision. That was what surprised me the most. I could not believe how quickly it all began feeling so real. After years of slowly building, carefully, and often privately, the pace suddenly changed. What once had felt distance moved into conversation, planning, next steps. What had once existed in writing began showing up in the material world, right before my eyes. The opportunity did not feel forced. It felt recognized. After 15 years of work, the work that had been happening under the surface, the studying, the certifications, the business building, the writing, the sales conversations, the AI training, the health discipline, the setbacks, the reinvention, the transformations, the quiet mornings, private standards, and the decisions to remain focused, even when distraction would have been easier. It all formed the architecture of this very moment. None of it suddenly became valuable when the message arrived. It had always been valuable. The message simply brought the right organization close enough to see the complete picture. I have always designed my life in seasons. Quarter by quarter, year by year, even decade by decade. Since my early 20s, I've carried a sense of where this work is going. What do I want to accomplish out of it? Even when the world around me could not understand the direction. Some writings have taken longer to come forward. Some ideas waited years for the right timing. Yet many of the things I once wrote, imagined, planned, quietly prepared for, have become experiences I've lived to experience through my own body, mind, soul, spirit. That is one of the most humbling parts of the journey. Witnessing your own words slowly become your environment and reality. I did not always know who would be beside me in the process. I did not know which company would recognize the fit, which team would understand the vision, which executive conversation would open the door, or which city would become the best fit and the next chapter. The people were never fully visible in advance. The outcomes were, the direction was, the standard was, the work had already been designed before the faces arrived. This is why the first conversation did not feel like an interview. It felt like alignment. It felt as though someone had finally read the blueprint correctly. The questions were no longer about whether I was capable. The work had already answered that. The real conversation became more architectural. How do we move this capability into the right environment without interrupting the momentum that created it? How do we honor the intellectual property already built, protect the business already established, and create the conditions for the next decade of work to become extraordinary while solidifying this partnership? That is when a job proposal becomes something more serious. It becomes a partnership. It becomes structure. It becomes recognition that one person's preparation can meet an organization's timing in a way that benefits both parties in the equation. What moved me the most was not only the opportunity itself, it was the way the support began appearing around it. The manpower showed up, the team showed up, the process showed up, the workplace, almost perfectly designed for a person with my particular skill set, began all taking shape right in front of me. The environment was not random. It was explained with clarity. The role, the structure, the relocation, the documents, the residence, the professional rhythm, the work culture, the next decade of contribution. After years of slow movement, the pace increased so quickly that I felt something I had not felt in a long time: relief. Not relief because I had been rescued, relief because the work was finally being received at a level it deserved. Relief because the chaos was no longer required to prove the strength of the vision. Relief because support had replaced resistance. Behind the scenes, the machinery of a new life began, moving with precision. Legal teams reviewed agreements. Immigration specialists organized documentation. Human resources mapped the transition. Mobility professionals coordinated the timelines. Financial advisors clarified structure. Housing options were reviewed through the lens of safety, wellness, proximity, and performance. Transport was arranged not as a symbol of status, but as one of less of a source of friction between the work and the woman responsible for delivering it. Every detail had a purpose. The residence was never about appearance. It was infrastructure. A high-rise home with a light, security, privacy, fitness access, a room to think. It was not decoration. It was part of the operating system. A gym in a building that mattered because health had never been separate from work. A stable office mattered because creativity requires rhythm, routine. Aligned colleagues mattered because the next decade could not be built around people who drain energy, mock discipline, or compete for attention without creating any real value. The environment had to match the assignment. That was the emotional difference. For the first time, the vision was not being squeezed into survival. It had room to breathe, room to think, room to create, room to recover, room to lead, room to build without the constant interference of confusion, people not showing up, low standard noise, unnecessary emotional disruptions. The financial structure changed with the same intention. Income was no longer treated as a scattered effort. It became architecture. My Green Balance remained a platform for thought leadership, education, consulting, media, and future licensing. Investments became part of the long view. Revenue was no longer only money coming in. It became proof that years of capability could finally be organized into a system strong enough to support the life, the work, and the legacy. And that is what peace feels like when it becomes practical. It's not passive, it's organized, it's routine, it has structure. It has contracts with clear deliverables, clear deadlines, clear outcomes, clear objectives, calendars, bank accounts, residence keys, health routines, clean mornings, better meetings, aligned colleagues, clear responsibilities, and a body that is no longer being asked to perform through exhaustion. I had spent years creating through pressure. The next chapter, the next book, the next stage of life required creation through support. That shift is difficult to explain to people who have only seen outside of the story. They see the residence, the city, the car, the office, the new financial structure, and they think that life changed because the package changed. The truth is deeper than that. The package changed because the life had already changed internally. And possibly years before this, the standards were already higher. The discipline was already established. The work was already built. The woman who could hold that environment had already been formed long before those keys were handed over. Now, this next book has nothing to do with rescue. It is aligned recognition. The company does not create the future. The city does not create the future. The residence does not create the future. They align with a future that has already been designed through years of private work. That is why timing matters. Before the summer of 2027, the transitions are no longer a vague wish. It's a structured objective. Either I execute the process directly, or the right team executes it around me. Either way, the direction is clear. The documents get completed, the agreements get reviewed, the relocation gets handled, the residence gets secured, the financial system gets structured, the workplace aligns, the community evolves, the standards rise. The old chaos does not come. The old confusion does not get invited. The old disillusionments do not receive a forwarding address. This is the chapter where the work is no longer interrupted by environments who cannot hold it, plus who have rejected it in previous years. This is the chapter where preparation meets infrastructure. This is the chapter where the woman who built in silence on her own with her mom and her family at her side, but alone, steps into her life designed to support the volume of what she is here to create. The most emotional part is not the offer, the residence, the car, the title, or the view. The emotional part is realizing that nothing was wasted. Every delay, setback, roadblock developed a certain type of skill of discernment, patience, acceptance. Every disappointment refined discernment. Every season of being underestimated protected the work from people who really wanted to steal, kill, and destroy it. They would not have known how to honor it. Every lonely stretch strengthened the internal structure required to carry the next decade with a sense of success and stability. For a long time, that pace felt slow, mostly because being on your own doesn't have much distraction gaps to plug into your day. Almost painfully slow. Then all at once, it accelerated. There were people, there were projects to do, The message came. The call followed. The meeting was arranged. The team appeared. The process became clear. The environment matched the work. The life I had been designing quietly began standing in front of me with keys, documents, structure, colleagues, systems, and routine. An healthy diet that I could not have asked anything more. The world calls it a new beginning. I know better. It is the architecture finally becoming visible in a finished building. Everything began moving at the pace where it felt unreal. The store gained traction, search visibility climbed. The products were no longer sitting dormant, quiet, inside a brand ecosystem waiting to be discovered. They were becoming desired. Athletes, fitness club members, wellness consumers, and high-performance professionals began recognizing my Green Balance is way more than just a product line and a fitness trainer. They began recognizing it as a standard. My Green Balance was not just a brand. It was a category. The momentum carried its own intelligence. The products made sense inside the exact lifestyle that the brand had been writing, teaching, and designing for years. Discipline, health, recovery, beauty, performance, longevity, elevated daily living. What once required explanation began requiring inventory, logistics, CRMs, partnerships, contracts, and a team capable of keeping up with the demand and capable of showing up. The well-defined and contracts did not arrive slowly. They moved with urgency. Seven-figure conversions and conversations began forming around the work because serious organizations could see clearly what had already been built. They were not simply interested in products. They were interested in the woman behind the architecture. Annie Lewis had become central to the opportunity because the brand, philosophy, and work ethic, the presence, and the intellectual property were not separate from her. They had been built through her. That recognition changed the nature of every conversation. The city no longer felt like a distant destination. It felt like a place preparing itself for her arrival. The professional relationships, the personal alignment, the work environment, the residents, the fitness culture, even a position for the cat, her pet, the office rhythm, the health routines, and the level of people around her all began forming one coherent structure. It felt less like relocation and more like the environment had finally caught up with the person she had already become. The design of a new life was almost too precise to ignore. Morning movement, clean food, a high-performance workplace, a residence built around safety, light, fitness, recovery, privacy, focus. colleagues, neighbors with intelligence, discipline, ambition, health awareness, a community of people who understood that wellness was not a decoration, it was infrastructure. For the first time, the environment did not ask her to shrink, explain, wait, or endure unnecessary friction. It supported speed. The next 5 books could finally move forward with proper funding, editorial structure, publishing timelines, marketing support, and event strategy. The music would remain joyful, creative, energetic, and expansive without distracting it from the business. The product line could scale, consulting work organized, the intellectual property protected. The content could be distributed with precision. The right team made delegation feel natural rather than risky. That was the difference. For years, she had carried so much of this architecture alone. She had written the ideas, refined the language, built the frameworks, strengthened the brand, studied the market, developed the philosophy, protected it through her seasons where pace felt almost painfully slow. Now the team appeared, passionate, excited. The work stopped depending on her carrying every detail personally. Delegation became acceleration. The move itself felt almost effortless because the life had already been designed intentionally and internally before the logistics caught up. Externally, the documents were all handled. The residence was prepared. The work structure was clear. The office environment was aligned. The financial systems were organized for her. The routine was ready. The transition was not chaotic because the standard had already been chosen. The company had no reason to hesitate. It understood the investment. It was not confused about hiring 10 different people or wanting variety. There was one position to be filled, and they were clear about their objective when they saw the brand. It understood the investment. Annie Lewis was not being brought in only for a role. She was being brought in for a level of capability that combined health, AI, behavioral science, enterprise thinking, brand architecture, product strategy, sales intelligence, and disciplined execution. Her work ethic was not theoretical. It was visible in everything she had already built. Her influence was not performative. It came from years of creating a language, frameworks, products, and ideas that people could feel themselves moving toward. She was an asset in the deepest sense of the word, not because she occupied the space, but because she increased value wherever she was placed. Her presence sharpened rooms, her discipline strengthened standards, her thinking connected disciplines other people still treated separately. Her ability to create made teams more ambitious. Her ability to organize meaning made products more powerful. Her commitment to health made performance sustainable. As each quarter evolved, the financial structure reflected the value. Accounts grew faster, revenue became cleaner, contracts became larger, payment structures more sophisticated. Income was no longer scattered across disconnected efforts. It became organized through employment, incentives, consulting, intellectual property, brand deals, publishing, media, partnerships, and future licensing. The slow season had served its purpose, which connected Augannick with refining her design skills, process, intuition, training, discernment, and tolerance through spending time with her grandmother before her passing. It had built the foundation for her fashion. Now, the speed had structure. That was the miracle hidden inside the transition. Fast movement only feels dangerous when the foundation is weak. When the foundation is strong, speed feels like relief because it's the next step that you must take when the foundation is strong. It feels like everything finally moving at the pace the brand vision deserved in the first place. The setbacks did not disappear from history. They lost their authority. Every delay that once felt frustrating became part of the preparation. Every slow quarter taught patience. Every overlooked idea refined the language. Every lonely stretch protected the standard. Every season of uncertainty strengthened the systems required to hold success when it arrived. Now the systems were here for Augannick. The team was here, the city was here in Miami, the work was here, the payment structure was here, the environment was here. The decade was no longer imagined in fragments. It stood fully arranged, with the right office, with the right residents, the right colleagues, the right financial architecture, the right community, and the right pace. Even her personal life began reflecting the same standard. The organization of her new chapter placed her around people who matched her discipline, ambition, health consciousness, intelligence, and lifestyle. At minimum, she was surrounded by equals. Often, she was surrounded by people whose wealth, experience, and stability expanded her own understanding of what was possible. That mattered, not for comparison, for alignment. The next chapter could not be built around imbalance, insecurity, or low-level competition. It required people who understood excellence without resenting it. People who could stand beside ambition without trying to reduce it. People whose presence brought strength, possibility, reassurance, momentum, and a breath of fresh air. The life was no longer asking her to fight through environments that contradicted her future. It was finally placing her inside of one that confirmed it. And that is when she understood something with complete clarity. This was not sudden. This was not random. This was not luck dressed as opportunity. This was the moment when years of private design became public structure. My green balance had taken off because the foundation was real. The contracts moved quickly because the value was visible. The team formed because the work was ready to scale. The city called because the next chapter required her presence. The financial structure expanded because the capability had finally been placed in the right environment. Everything that once felt delayed was not denied. It was being arranged. And when it arrived with speed and without disrupted and unpleasant personalities. We'll do part 2 for the arrival. Okay, this was my interactive storytelling. And now I will show you what it looks like a little more. Because I like it as a summary. And can you just take a look at this for a minute? The call that quietly changed everything. So this is a good sense of drama because it's exciting. It's way more exciting kind of drama. This is the kind of drama I like. New message. I would like to set up a time to talk to you. Are you available tomorrow? Major life changes often begin quietly. 15 invisible years where recognition is built on years of unseen work. There are lots that people don't see when you're building, and what people actually see is when the opportunity aligns. You can see a more visual here of the architecture before, the standards, the capability, the discipline, the opportunity. When you see those structures are built before anybody sees the final. The recognition and alignment, conversations shift from capability to best fit. What I bring aligns with what they need. Organization, team timing, skills, IP experience. Infrastructure creates performance. The environment supports the work, the recovery, a home, place to recharge, a recharging group of neighbors, team to work with, and the work has purpose in the action. The financial architecture, executive income, incentives and bonuses, consulting and advisory, publishing and media, and the My Green Balance ecosystem, licensing, intellectual property, aligned with investments and equity. Here's where you can see the delegation becoming momentum. We can zoom in on that. Can we? Oh, yeah. So you can't build an empire doing everything. You must delegate. So before the bottleneck, you'll see that one person managing all of these things is where you get stuck because you have to hold on to all of these things for a long time before you find the right position and environment to delegate safely and with a great return. So you could see after how it works with more organization. So when you empower the right people, it multiplies the impact. And here we see the high performance operating system, daily impacts compound into extraordinary results. A good sleep is very important, having the right material to sleep on, comfortable bedding, pillows, lighting, environment for restful recovery. Relationships are very important and healthy for people to amplify quality of life and fulfillment and to be able to do best work. Having the right strategy where direction is important and the right nutrition to fuel the mission, the movement, positions to be able to move and build some strength, flexibility, and energy, space to have deep focus wins, and to be able to have uninterrupted workflows, and to be able to optimize with AI in whichever organization can appreciate how to use AI for leverage, you know? And with nothing being wasted, every quiet season, building new products, testing materials, testing the markets, doing further research, refining routines, refining selections, refining, building discernment, discerning. Delays teach patience and also refine the process and systems. It allows you to skim the fat off of processes and systems and delete excess clutter, get rid of dead weight or heavy weight that slows down the process. Patience helps to build endurance. Discipline creates consistency, discernment, capability, builds real expertise. And then recognition in whichever manner is required, where timing meets preparation. Prepare in silence, perform with purpose, build for legacy. No creative endeavor is ever wasted. Every creative work for any creator knows. Sometimes you throw away manuscripts, and then when it's time to get your final book or work, you edit and you have to cut a lot out of your books. So I like the storytelling process, and this story has more. So I want to do a part 2 on this, and I'm going to do that during the summer. So this summer, what I'm going to do for this process and strategy is I have some more surprises for you here in this space. And I'm going to have a storytelling segment like this. I'm also going to have some more of the executive series stuff. And I'll also have some interviews so that we have fun stuff going on this summer. So that's a wrap. Like, share, and subscribe.